Dodgers Padres is getting way past spicy, and of course, we've got prominent former Cardinals in the mix. What's going on, everyone, and welcome into this edition of b-schaeff Daily. Brenden Schaeffer with you. It is Monday afternoon, October 7th, 2024. No new Cardinals news just yet as the Major League Baseball postseason is going on. We'll come your way with more Cardinals updates throughout the month of October, I'm sure. But today I wanted to jump in on everything that's been going on surrounding the Dodgers and Padres series, which Sunday night, the Padres evened up one game apiece with a 10-2 win over Los Angeles. They're able to take one of the two games there out in L.A. to begin this series, and the series getting its attention now for the extracurriculars that went on during last night's game. And, of course, Dodgers fans are right in the middle of it, and for a couple of different reasons. Obviously, throwing objects onto the field, causing a relatively substantial delay in last night's game, is something that Dodgers fans should be embarrassed about. But there's another reason that Dodgers fans should be embarrassed, at least the ones that were in that left field corner last night. And again, throwing objects onto the playing surface is a thing you cannot do. And I believe it was maybe some of those folks in that area, looking at a few of the different videos from last night, that were doing that to begin the delay. And obviously tensions were really high. I want to talk about another reason, though, in this video why those Dodgers fans should be embarrassed. And it's actually related to the competition aspect of the game. I'll explain what I mean by that, but I also wanted to highlight some of the former Cardinals obviously involved in the mix. Last night's game was one started by Jack Flaherty for the Dodgers, obviously the former Cardinal, and Mike Shildt, of course, the manager of the Padres. And Tommy Edman was obviously there too. He's a member of the Dodgers now. But Flaherty jawing at Manny Machado after striking him out for the final out of Flaherty's evening there in the sixth inning. And basically, we can all read the lips of what Jack Flaherty said to Machado. Basically, it was escorting him or encouraging him to get back to the dugout in no uncertain terms. It's interesting, though. Jack Flaherty, he likes to talk. We know Jack Flaherty likes to talk. It's one of those deals that when you're winning, when things are going well, and you've got that swagger about you, you're talking some trash to the opponent, something your teammates can certainly feed off of. Jack Flaherty's team lost 10-2 last night, though. I feel like that's worthwhile to point out. And he was jawing and really having some words for Manny Machado. His second strikeout of the night, his final strikeout of the night, he struck out 2 in 5+ innings, 5 1/3. I think he ended up going. Gives up 4 runs, his ERA over 6 for the night. When you're talking trash and not backing it up with your performance, I mean, that does probably feel a little bit different. And by the time the night was through last night, 6 home runs, I believe, for the Padres. A couple of them from Fernando Tatis Jr., who, I mean, that's the kind of trolling that I'm on board with when you're kind of doing the fake tears to the fans. He was blowing kisses to the fans last night. Look, when you win a game 10-2, those are the kinds of things that you can do. When you go 5 1/3, give up 4 earned runs, and you're puffing your chest about the second strikeout of your game, which was the last batter you faced. I don't know. How do we feel about that? Are you team Jack Flaherty last night, Cardinals fans, or are you team Padres and Mike Shildt? I just don't. I mean, the jawing continued into the next inning with Flaherty out of the game on the bench. Machado takes his position on the field. I don't know if there was an invitation to maybe meet outside in the parking lot after the game. I don't really know what all was said there, but kind of strange. Kind of strange, but also if you remember Jack Flaherty's time with the Cardinals, he's a guy that wears his emotions on his sleeves, and he plays with that emotion and plays with his heart. And emotions tensions can get high in a series like this. 2 NL West rival teams, of course. But it's like, I just don't know if it's as good of a look when you're losing a game. When you're losing 10-2. And at the time, it wasn't 10-2. I think it was 3-1, maybe. The Padres were leading the Dodgers on that Machado strikeout in the 6th inning. And that's not really what started all the tension necessarily, because you have two streams that are sort of running concurrently with the way that Profar handled the robbery of a Mookie Betts home run. Let me get into that for a second as well, because I did want to make sure to have a platform to talk about that. This was a play that happened right near the beginning of the game with Mookie Betts hitting one out to deep left. Jurickson Profar goes into the crowd, basically. The ball was clearly over the wall, and he goes up and makes a great, spectacular catch. And then the way that he handled it after the fact was all-time trolling by Jurickson Profar, who stood there. There's nobody on base or anything, so it's not like he had to rush to get the ball back in. He basically allowed everybody in the stadium to think that it was a home run because he kind of hopped up and down, continuing to look out toward the fans there in left field over that wall, and as though he was, just barely missed it. I almost had it. I almost made the great catch, and he was sort of making it seem as though the ball dropped out of his glove or something and landed among those fans. They start kind of looking down. I love the angle that shows it and plays in the background the natural sound because it shows Jurickson Profar obviously way off in the distance, and Xander Bogaerts, shortstop, was in the shot, in the frame. And you can see Bogaerts throw his hands in the air. He sees right away that it was a catch, and he just keeps looking out that direction. And the stadium's going nuts. The broadcast wasn't quite sure what to do. The graphics team on Fox put up the home run graphic for Betts, and he was rounding the bases. He got all the way to pretty close to third base, I think, before realizing the ball had been caught. But it was those fans out in left field that Jurickson Profar was trolling, and then by extension, everybody else in the ballpark kind of saw, and they start celebrating as though it was a home run. Anyway, after a couple of moments, he turns back to the infield, throws the ball back in, and everybody realizes they'd been duped. It was very funny. I am team trolling. I think it's fantastic. It didn't, as long as there's no competitive disadvantage that it brings your team, I think it's brilliant. I think it makes the game fun. And look, my opinion, Profar was right to troll those fans because it was their fault that it was not a home run for the Los Angeles Dodgers. And you might think that this next take that I'm going to share with you is me doing a bit, or I'm trying to be funny, or I'm trying to make a joke. I am dead serious when I say this. Those fans in left field are responsible for that not being a Mookie Betts home run. Because when you're in those seats, my opinion, you got to know the rules of the game. You got to know that as a fan, you're allowed to exist and to occupy your space out there beyond that wall. There was even a security guard there, a Dodger Stadium security guard, that was kind of lingering around in that area toward the front row. And everybody from the fans to the security guard, it's like they were leaning back away from the playing surface, giving Jurickson Profar all the room that he needed to go unimpeded into the crowd and be able to make that play. Now, there were some Dodgers fans a couple seats away that were reaching out toward the ball, trying to maybe make a play on it, make a catch. And obviously, if a fan catches it, it's a home run. But as a fan, you can rob the robbery from Jurickson Profar. If he's leaning over, and that it's not every ballpark that has this opportunity, but that wall is only about, probably 4.5 feet high or so. Pretty easy for an outfielder to reach over, not only reach over, but to jump over and have the majority of their body be basically in with the crowd. But the way that the ruling on spectator interference is written, there is no interference from a fan down there that's trying to make a catch on the ball as long as they're not reaching out onto the playing surface. Here's the definition from MLB. I'm pulling this up for spectator interference on MLB.com. I'll just read the whole thing, and we'll see what applies in this instance. In every case of spectator interference with a batted or thrown ball, the ball shall be declared dead. The base runners can be placed where the umpires determine they would have been without the interference. When a spectator clearly prevents a fielder from catching a fly ball by reaching on to the field of play, the batter shall be ruled out. So again, home game for the Dodgers. Dodgers fans sitting out there in the left field corner. Mookie Betts up to bat. He's a Dodger. Hits one that's going to go over the wall. It's a home run if it clears. The fielder is given all the space he needs by those fans out there who sort of lean away, give him all the room he needs, and it's a catch. It's an out, not a home run for Mookie Betts. Continuing with the reading of this spectator interference rule, however, no interference is called if a spectator comes in contact with a batted or thrown ball without reaching onto the field of play, even if a fielder might have caught the ball had the spectator not been there. If you're sitting in the front row as a Dodgers fan, you have a very rare opportunity in sports as a fan of a team to positively impact your team's chances to win a game. A meaningful game in this case. It's a playoff game. Dodgers fans sitting out there legitimately, again, I am not trolling with this take. I legitimately believe earnestly what I'm saying right now. Those Dodgers fans had the opportunity to potentially impact that game. Their team was down 1-0. Would have been a tying run in the bottom of the first inning as things are getting warmed up into this game. Got a long way to go. But you've got fans out there, and I keep watching the replay. Rather than sort of assert themselves a little bit more toward the area that the ball was traveling, you kind of see people leaning away. You know, there's the security guard there kind of leaning right out of the way. That's the one person, man. You work, maybe not work for the team. I don't know who employs the security at Dodger Stadium. But he's leaning out of the way. couple fans over to the side. I'm trying to figure out if one of those seats was empty up front. It is a little bit strange. Security standing there. And look, I don't know. Maybe there's security to make sure. I don't really know what the security happened to be doing there. I think it's just in an aisle, maybe between two seats, that the security guard is standing, possibly. Kind of hard to tell, honestly. It just looks like a row of seats to me, but maybe there's an entrance to that row down there, some stairs, and you can go to either side. Maybe that's why nobody was directly sitting there. But you are absolutely, as a fan, you see that ball coming, you're within your rights to go try to reach out and catch it. I don't know that you can just shove Jurickson Profar out of the way. But again, the way the rule is stated is with regard to coming in contact with the ball. It doesn't say anything about coming in contact with the fielder. Is it a case like it is in football, defensive pass interference? Was he going for the ball, or was he trying to just knock the guy down? I don't know what the rule is from the fan standpoint there. I don't see anything in regard to spectator interference as I read the definition. But if nothing else, you can just be there and occupy the space you're entitled to, as long as you're not reaching onto the field of play. I describe it like an inbound play in basketball. If you're guarding the baseline, what do they tell you to do? You don't want to lean over out of bounds. You got the referee will come in between you and the player, and they'll put their hand in the middle and say, "Hey, you got to go straight up. Got to go straight up. Can't lean out over the boundary. Straight up, baby. I'm putting my arms straight up, try to catch that ball, and just make it look like you're trying to catch it. You don't even have to. It might be nice to get the souvenir, but if you're playing for the Dodgers, this is your one chance as a fan. You actually get to play for your team. You just stand there and you make Profar go through you. I know that's a big. He's probably 6'2". How tall is Jurickson Profar? Because he's a big guy. All these professional athletes are big guys. But you got to take one for the team at some point. He's listed at 6'0". But I mean, that's a professional athlete barreling toward you. He's only listed 6'0", 184. But I mean, I think you got to take the hit. You're reaching up for the ball. You don't even have to catch it. Don't grab his glove, because you don't want to give the umpires any reason to errantly rule that it is fan interference, even though based on the definition, it should only be based on you actually reaching out onto the field of play. It's very clear, though, the fielder comes into the crowd at their own risk. So if you're in the crowd, you're occupying the space you're allowed to occupy. Dodgers fans should be ashamed. You gotta make that a homer for bets. Whether, honestly, reach out for the ball and again, I'm going to make a comparison to football. Like it's a Hail Mary at the end of a football game. You're the defender standing in the end zone. Coach calls a prevent defense. He puts everybody. Sometimes you get like the tight end that's not even a defender. Rob Gronkowski will come out on defense just to stand up and try to bat down the jump ball. As long as you're clearly not reaching out onto the field of play, you're a Dodgers fan, you got to jump up and bat that ball down. You got to just bat it out of the way. Don't worry about catching it. Bat it out of the way. It's a run for your team. How often can you say, for any of us who have never played professional baseball, you could say, yeah, I impacted the game. I made sure the Dodgers scored a run by playing defensive back on a Hail Mary into the end zone. I knocked it out of the way. Profar might have had a look at it, but I was reaching up. I wasn't leaning away. I wasn't leaning out toward the field because that's interference. I was just in my seat, and I reached up, and I batted it down. It's a home run once a spectator does that. That's my real take. I don't know. Let me know if I'm crazy. But that was sort of the beginning of the consternation in this game. And obviously, Dodgers Padres have had their issues over the years. But on this night, it starts in the first inning with Dodgers left fielder Jurickson Profar trolling the Dodgers fans that were out there after he made a big play. And it was cool to see. But then you get the jawing later on between Flaherty and Machado. You get the fans out there. I think what had happened is at some point, and I saw the video on Twitter, I don't know exactly when Profar did this, but he gave a ball to one of those fans, and they threw it not at him, not at Profar, but just back onto the field. Like, we don't want this. We don't want anything to do with this. And then I guess seeing that, other fans began to maybe throw some things on the field. That might have been the moment that it all began. But that inspired a delay in this game, and it was also interesting to hear Joe Davis on the Fox broadcast try to talk through it, given that he is the Dodgers broadcaster during the season. And a lot of people complaining about he gets more excited during an Ohtani home run maybe than a home run by Tatis or whatever, which I don't know. I don't know if that's entirely fair. I think that's more just the Ohtani bias, but even it makes sense to be biased in favor of Ohtani because he's the best ever. So I kind of understand that there'd be a little bit of bias there. But I also get, if I'm a Padres fan, I'm going, they've got the Dodgers broadcaster doing this game. What? That's not fair. Of course he's going to be more excited about things when the Dodgers do them, even though I think Joe Davis is one of the best there is in baseball broadcasting these days. But nevertheless, you got all this going on, and obviously the two sides getting heated. Mike Shildt getting some explanations. After the game, this was tweeted by Bob Nightingale, one of the reporters, obviously. This was from Mike Shildt post-game, talking about the delay with objects being thrown at Padres players on the field. Quote, "We know both sides know this is a competitive series. We're going to compete hard. They're going to compete hard. Things are going to happen. We can leave that on the field. But as far as anything happening in a stadium like that toward our players, that's just not acceptable. And I know we're about to go back to San Diego with a very, very loud, raucous, aggressive, hungry crowd. That's going to be super exciting, going to be getting after it. But I also know that we'll stay classy, San Diego." Yeah, he dropped a Ron Burgundy line in there at the end. Just craziness, man. And again, the fuel to the fire, I think, a little bit, is everything that happened with Jack Flaherty, which that took place in the 6th inning. But Flaherty pitching to Machado was in the top half. And then by the end of the 6th, that's, I think, between the 6th and 7th is when you had about a 12-minute delay. So the tempers were high from the beginning of the game. You see that go on between Flaherty and Machado. They're still jawing between the top of the 6th and bottom of the 6th, I believe, is when that jawing happened. And so that kind of reignited the tempers and the tension from the crowd, I think, a little bit. And then whether Profar's incident then was to give the ball back to somebody, and if that had anything to do with it, maybe that was going into the top of the 7th when Profar, that video I saw of Profar handing a ball to a Dodgers fan. I don't really know exactly when all the timeline of when all that took place, but tension's high. And of course, all the while the Padres are blowing the Dodgers out of the stadium in that game 10-2. Very crazy stuff, but what do you guys make of it? Baseball fans, Cardinals fans, doesn't matter. This is a Cardinals channel usually, but any baseball fans that have thoughts on this one, let me know yours. It's very interesting, and now it's going to set up for a series that, man, I think this one probably could go 5 games. I like the Padres in it, though, honestly, after the way that they responded to some, what do you call it, adversity, or just call it, the high-pressure packed scenario with the way that the environment was devolving in that game. I feel like the Padres held their composure much better, and now we'll see them get a chance to go back home for the next 2. And look, man, if they win Game 3, I don't think this series gets back to L.A. I don't think if you're the Dodgers, it would make sense to want to get down in this series, because you might not be able to claw your way back. If you give the Padres an inch, they're going to take a mile. So we'll see what Mike Shildt and his club are able to do. But very interesting, some of the key players and pieces that were involved in the drama over on Sunday night. And look, man, I gave my take on what I thought those Dodgers fans should have been doing. But obviously, when it comes to throwing objects on the field, that should be pretty much universal. You don't do that. It's a bad look for Dodgers fans. My other qualm was more of a competitive one, but that's not the type of thing that maybe a lot of fans are thinking of when they have those seats down in the left field corner. But I think you should. You got to build a wall. You got to put up a wall and make sure Profar can't get through it. Don't do anything illegal. Don't reach onto the field, but anything else is pretty much fair game. And I think the Dodgers fans that were leaning away, and then to think that the folks from that same area were the ones that were throwing balls back onto the field, kind of crazy to me. But clearly Jurickson Profar got under their skin, and clearly the Padres were getting under Jack Flaherty's skin. When your final line reads 5 1/3, 4 earned runs, it's like a 6.7 ERA, and you're jawing because you got 2 strikeouts on the night, and your team loses 10-2. It's just those are the things that you look at. Those are the ways that it plays out, and that's what we see. It wasn't 10-2 at the time, but they weren't winning the game. Dodgers were trailing, and emotions were running high. So I think that's a little bit of a more interesting look. If Flaherty's shoving and it's a tie game 1-1 and he goes 7 or something with 8 Ks, that comes off a little bit differently than I think it did last night. At least the way that I took it. I don't know how other folks are taking it. I think a lot of Dodgers fans like it, right? You show that fire, that competitiveness. That's something that can be very much used as a motivator, as fuel, and something that Jack Flaherty can have in his back pocket as something he can pull out and use to the betterment of the team. But last night it was just kind of, I don't know. It's definitely going to set the table for sort of the way that the rest of this series is viewed, I think, between these two teams. Like this is going to be in the back of everybody's mind the next time that there's anything going on. any semblance of some discourse back and forth here, we're all going to be glued. We're all going to be watching closely. Before we get out of here, I want to get into a little bit of the audio. Courtesy of Marty Caswell, who covers the Padres, it looks like, had some words from Manny Machado when he was asked about the incident after the game. And Manny's initial response to this is kind of funny. Like, again, when you win 10-2, you can sort of feel like, all right, I can be a little more courteous in the postgame, but also I can throw a little bit of this, a little bit of that in there, and kill him with kindness almost by complimenting Flaherty. But here's some of that from Manny Machado after the game.
Flaherty, that kind of started everything off.
Where? Which one? There's a few. Strikeout? After the strikeout?
The
yeah, man, he made some good pitches, right? He made quality pitches, got me going, and he won that competition, right? Made his pitches. I couldn't deliver with that situation there. Runners on first and second, no outs, right? So he won that one for sure.
What were you guys saying to each other?
Just going back and forth, competition, right? I mean, things that happen in between the lines, people just going back and forth. He's competing for his ball club, and I'm trying to get a big hit for my team. So, yeah, man. I mean, this is the beauty of postseason baseball, right?
Manny, did you take exception with something he said to you?
No, I mean, I didn't even see it. until my dugout started screaming back at him. So, I mean, he won it. I mean, he made his pitches, right? I swung at a ball 4. He got me twice today, and. I tip my cap. When credit's due, I kept walking. He made his pitch. I kept going, but then I get to the end of the dugout and I see my team starts sparking. So that's kind of when I figured something, he was probably saying something, and that's when everything kind of just went out, and I didn't really know what was really going on.
When you went back out for the field, you were still going at it. When Jack was in the dugout, what was being said there?
I mean, honestly, you can't really hear with this crowd, so I don't really know what was being said. A bunch of gibberish going back and forth, and it was a long inning for us after that with balls being thrown, and kind of icing our pitcher there a little bit, and Darvish coming out and having that 0 was huge for us as well. So, yeah, man, it's a beautiful thing to be playing Postseason baseball.
Pretty well said there by Machado. Want to get a little bit from Flaherty as well after the game, talking in the Dodgers locker room. But again, the way that Machado handled it is, there's some gibberish being said out there. I don't know, it was loud. But I think, in the back of his head, he knows it's some of the stuff that he's not going to share again publicly unless you can read lips and find it from the broadcast. It's not going to see the light of day. I think that's his stance, and I think that's probably correct. But, let's see the approach that Flaherty took with the media after the game.
I mean, there's a lot to say. First is that fans, you should never get involved. There's no reason. There's no need, no reason ever to throw anything at players, no matter what's going on. There's no reason to get involved with it. Stay out of it. And whatever went on over there, they have every reason to be upset about it. We should never feel like we're ever going to get anything thrown at us on either side. So fans should never be involved. They didn't like the pitch to Tatis. I missed in the first inning, and I threw the ball over the middle. I wasn't going to miss over the plate again, but I've got no reason to hit a guy there to start off the 6th, as good as he's been swinging the bat. But we're down in the game. I'm trying to go in for effect, and he didn't get out of the way. It hit him. Didn't try to go and hit him to try to lead off an inning or anything like that. That doesn't really make sense. Didn't go up near his head, nothing, just trying to push a guy off the plate. He didn't get out of the way. And sometimes that happens, they're upset about it. That's part of it. I was fired up after getting Manny out. It was on a big spot in the playoffs. That's what happened. I was fired up. Oh well. And then, he did some in between innings where he tries to throw the ball at our dugout. And everybody kind of catches the tail end of it, which is me and him going at it. But I was sitting there for my team. I wasn't sitting there to go at him. But he was throwing the ball at our dugout, and the umpires went over immediately to tell him. I don't know what their conversation was, but our dugout was fired up because there ain't no reason for that. Everybody caught the tail end of it. Everybody caught just me and him going at it. Manny's a great player. And, I understand everybody it's postseason, everybody's fired up. I get upset, frustrated about pitching to Tatis, like I said. You gotta be able to pitch him in, and I missed it in the first inning, and I wasn't gonna miss over
There you go. That's Jack Flaherty talking after the game about the incident. So talking about maybe part of it was when he went up and in on Tatis. He said Tatis didn't get out of the way. So kind of like, all right, you're a pitcher. You're trying to have control the inside part of the plate. You're a batter. You're trying to hold your ground. That's always the cat and mouse. But it was interesting. I mean, he started off and said the right thing. The fans can't do that. He did it. He said it respectfully, but he's right. You can't be throwing things on the field. So that was good to hear. But yeah, kind of interesting the way that he characterized it. I guess Machado throwing a ball toward their dugout and, Flaherty sees it and then maybe everybody else catches the tail end of it. Kind of like Machado said, my dugout was fired up. I didn't really know what happened, but based on them being fired up, I realized I better start jawing with Jack Flaherty. That's what it's going to take now, because something must have happened that they saw that I didn't see. But then Jack talking about, well, they didn't really see what had happened. It was the tail end, and he threw a ball at us, and the umpires, he doesn't know exactly what they told him, but seems to think they told him to maybe don't do that. So just a lot of little stuff on both sides. You got to love baseball, man. You got to love it, and I think it's fun. As long as everybody stays safe out there and nobody, gets injured as a result of any of this, I think it's all pretty much fun and adds a lot of compelling nature to the series. So let me know your thoughts, guys. And we're going to see what happens, man. Game 3 coming up before you know it. Between the Dodgers and the Padres, series is tied at 1 apiece. All right, appreciate you guys as always for listening. That'll do it for this video. Make sure you guys are subscribed for future baseball videos, St. Louis sports videos, Cardinals videos, all that kind of stuff. And we'll talk to you next time on b-schaeff Daily. Peace.